Before we get into it, if you enjoyed these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button, and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as, investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Alright folks, here we are on Tuesday, July 15th. We're a few minutes before market close, and we're going to take a look at SoFi today. So it's been a few months since we looked at SoFi, and boy has this been a run. Now those several months ago when we did look at it was back here in April, and in April we were looking at this here wedge pattern, and what we were looking for was a breakout if it were to push through this wedge. Now, of course, at some point it's going to push through it, and this could have broke to the downside, but what we're looking for is a lengthy consolidation, and as you see, it ran these candles right into the intersection point of this downtrend resistance and this uptrend support, and so it really played out the full measure there. Maybe give us a little bit of a precursor to the move that we subsequently saw as it broke out, or had a sort of a failed breakout here a little bit ahead of time, came back in, consolidated further, and then beautiful move there. So I feel really good about that pattern that we had identified, we had on the chart, and we're looking for an outsized move just like this. So if you had taken this green candle here at around say 1290 or so this day, maybe you would have been a little nervous when it came down, but it did double bottom there basically, and on that double bottom you would have been looking at a really nice gain over not a tremendously lengthy period of time. So pretty good move there. I'm going to take this off the chart for now because it's not going to serve us at this moment, and I did put some sort of markers on the chart here, places that we might look for, see where it might go and what it might do when it get there. So 2178 is the nearest in critical level to the upside, and as you see, it wicked off of that a couple days ago. Had a strong recovery intraday yesterday, was able to move up toward it. Today couldn't quite approach it yet. If we see what this looks like on the 10 minutes, there you'll see it, right? Wicked up toward it. So it's sort of, since it did wick off of it on that daily candle here, it is showing diminishing strength toward it. However, we could also easily look at this as sort of a flagpole and then a bull flag forming here, and it consolidating, getting ready to bounce and make another big move. Now, where might that be? If it were to again sort of double bottom slash hit top of a resistance point here, previous resistance point here, we might look in the high 20s. So maybe 10-15 cents lower than it is now, maybe about where this low of the day came in today. And that might give it the gusto to give another shot at 2178 and see if it can break through. Now if it can break through, the next level that I have on the chart is 2378. There are some smaller levels in here, so you will see some intraday action. This is charted off the daily, and so I tried to, again, not clutter the chart so much, and one way to do that is to just select out what seem like the key strongest levels, even if you don't put in every little micro level in between. So just so you know what you're looking at here, but 2378 comes from way back here. This is what we have to pull from, right back in 2021. We were all here for the saga that this was. I often think back to the days of trying to figure out, based on the documents, when the lockup period ended, and it being in touch with SoFi reps and them seeming to really want to avoid the question. So that's what, when I scroll back here, that's always what this reminds me of, especially then when we saw this uptick in volume, we're like, hey, there's something happening. But in any case, those levels are coming from back here. Now, like I said, 2378, then there is a relatively near in level there, so I know I had to sort of walk a fine line here between not wanting to crowd the chart, but also not wanting to ignore levels, and also knowing that SoFi is, relative to its overall chart, it's fairly extended, right? And this run has been so bullish upon bullish upon bullish. I did want to, be respectful of that, if you will, and say, okay, if it's feeling kind of top heavy, maybe I'll put in a couple of tight ranges here on the top. So break through that 2178, I would be looking at an attempt toward 2378. There's not a lot in between there, just some sort of push, pull, and then break. So, and the question is, where's the break, right? Is it breaking to the upside, breaking to the downside? If they can push at 2378, it has a bit of a sticky zone here, like less than $1 range, up to 2465. And that's where it would be interesting to see what the resistance there is like, because you see this candle, these candles, this wick, this candle, and this wick here, all, just soundly rejecting it time after time. And when it rejected it, well, when it first rejected it here, it had a pretty steep fall, but then it had, an exuberant run up, pull back down, and then, we were just on the course of bang into that level, steep sell off. Consolidate, recover a little bit, try it again, bang into it, steep sell off. and then we got here, banged into it, steep sell off, and that was about that. This one in particular, I think, was an earnings situation. Yeah, that's what it looks like. And that's when our boy came all the way down to 424 here off of that attempt at like 2465. So I would just be mindful if it does get through that, or through this 2178, then through that 2378. It's odd that they're both 78 cents. It's not on purpose. I would be just very aware of what happens at that 2465. Now, if we are in just, like I said, the exuberance phase, and SoFi is just wanting to go for all-time highs, I wouldn't discount that as well. I think a lot will be said about what it does when it gets to 2465, and then what it does off of 2465. So in other words, if it bumps into it, pulls back, and really does a strong job consolidating in a relatively tight zone. In other words, if it doesn't bounce at 2378, maybe it comes down sort of mid-range between 2378 and 2178, maybe about this 2278, and then makes another run at it. That might show that the buying pressure is just so lofty at this point. It's at such a high price point that eventually folks that are looking to unload around that 2465 level, they can be exhausted, and sooner or later, maybe they will be, but they're going to have to continue to put pressure on there. As you see back here, then it would be a race toward 2826, which I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, if it's a race toward 2826 all-time high, and we push, the goal there is going to be 30, right? SoFi is going to want 30, I think. So it's a guess on my part, but yeah, that's what I would sort of lean toward. Now, it does pull back from where it is right now, just under $21, looking to that 19.29 to hold. You see that back here, right? This action here, this little bit of flooring here, this little bit of battling here. Again, double bottom there, that gave that push to 2465, and then when it slipped it and it couldn't even reconfirm the exact range point, then we got that steep sell-off. So that's what I'm looking for levels-wise. Now, sorry, I just want to check something. Okay, now, if we just look at the EMAs, it's not going to tell us a lot because it is so extended, but we're here, so we might as well take a look. Yeah, you see just tremendous move off of this, what I often preach, the 183 EMA, when it secured support over that. Oh, there's the closing bell. And all of the short-term EMAs, the 8, the 21, the 34, once they all crossed over that 21, right, and that was, again, right at that point where it was wedging out. So you had such a confluence of events. That's why we were talking about it. You had the potential for it to wedge out. You had the 183 EMA right there. And then you had the 8, 21, and 34 all able to, at that point they weren't yet, but able to throw bullish crossover after bullish crossover and just lift the price out of that wedge. And that's exactly what we saw happen. Came down a couple times, tested the 34, beautiful motion off of it, and then has just been, like I said, elevated, lofty for a long time since then. So we'll see. what it does, if it wants to pull back in, test the 8 again, that's what it's been using, right? So that's often the indication that there's significant additional bullish momentum to exhaust before any further pullback is going to happen. If it comes down, test the 21, maybe no big deal, but it will feel like a bit of a stronger pullback. 34, yeah, things can start to get a little bit questioning there, but for all intents and purposes, SoFi obviously in a fully bullish formation at the moment. We take a quick look at the Thinkorswim side of things here. Nice call out here by the TTM squeeze indicator. We see, the move coming in, TTM squeeze really quick trigger. It's just a 4-candle trigger, and then it fired and exploded through, reaching just past the +1 ATR. This was in June, and then coming in, strong motion to the call trigger, and when it hit the call trigger a few days into the month, and then bang, came up, wicked right off of the +1 ATR. So again, is it going to kind of hover around here? It's early in the month to already be at the +1. Does it mean it has to stop here? No, of course not. We can go look at the Palantir chart and see that. But, it'll be interesting to see what it does here. Does it kind of just consolidate a bit around this range? Does it pull back here to the interim ATR level and sort of level off there? We'll see, but if it does maintain its relative price point here, these shift, so this will be a little bit different by the time we get into August. But if it is relatively the same to what we're looking at right now, August would have a call trigger at 21.79 and a +1 ATR all the way up to 24.47, so getting us closer and closer toward that all-time high effort, which again, I think ultimately results in a strive toward 30, but it has a long way to go, especially percentage-wise, because the price is relatively still so low. So a couple bucks is full-on 10% move, right? So a lot of work to get there, but, the setup is there, and it's just going to be, do folks get exhausted? Do we get some exhaustion candles getting thrown in here? Or do we get just pure unadulterated momentum? Maybe we get good earnings news here, right, toward the end of the month. That could obviously be a game changer. I would also say, even on par news or relatively good news with a run-up that's been so strong since the last earnings, right? So this has come nearly double in price since last earnings. If it's on par or even just a little bit good, people might feel like it's not good enough to warrant a doubling in the price and might still sell off. And anything short of that might sell off really hard. So just be aware that that's, but we're a couple weeks out from that. So we'll see what happens. Now, I did want to check in here on FinViz. I've been looking at FinViz a bit recently. They're not a sponsor. I just thought I'd mention it. You are going to get annoying pop-ups and ads and stuff and whatever. But we scrolled on here. They do a nice job of just sort of consolidating, synthesizing, tossing into red things that you might want to sort of watch out for, putting in green things that might be sort of, signs of bolstering or boosting. But, PE obviously getting pretty heavy. It's not like Tesla heavy, but it is what it is, keeping an eye on the PEG, the EPS this year, so on and so forth. But there's a lot of really good, standout stats as well. So just giving you an opportunity to dig through here and say what's important to you based on your strategy, based on what you look for. And I think they do a really nice job presenting it. But you look here, 3-year performance. Let's just say the past year, if you were in this puppy, you're feeling pretty good, probably up over 200% just in shares. Right, so that's not even thinking about anything else. And just the last quarter, you're up almost 100%. So as we were just talking about, basically doubling of the price from earnings to earnings and what that might do to earnings, we'll see. SoFi has historically been kind of very reactive to analyst ratings. So maybe that will wear off a little bit as it shakes off the dust of, that SPAC stank, the Chamath stank. Old IPOE, our buddy. But as it gets some distance there and gets some more sort of like fundamentals and critical financials out there year after year and quarter after quarter, these things might sway it less, but I think early on when you have less to go off and everything feels just tremendously more speculative, then yeah, there's some overweighting of what the analysts put out there. And so you do see some recent downgrades. We do see some initiations, some resume. I think that was just yesterday. So a downgrade yesterday and a resume from Goldman yesterday, neutral. So, no one throwing out like killer price points yet, but that doesn't necessarily have to mean anything. But it is nice to see that it's not just getting crushed when it's doing otherwise really well performance-wise on a simple downgrade by Citizens, right? So that's good to see, but it might be worth poking around FinViz if you haven't in a while. This used to look very different, and so I'm happy with what they've done. I think it's a good tool at this point, and there's a lot more. That was literally just the SoFi page, and that's not the only SoFi page that there is, and I didn't even scroll all the way to the bottom. Okay, I don't know, free plug for FinViz. But in any case, I hope your trading week is going well, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.